the art of the ask, how we do what we need to do is so critically important. So that's what this session is all about. I'm going to put my eyes on so that I do this right. Amy has more than 25 years in nonprofit development, and Amy partners through Giving Tree Associates with organizations to develop effective fundraising campaigns, develop strong leadership teams, and empower them with tools to visualize and achieve mission impact. Since co-founding Giving Tree Associates in 2008, Amy has helped clients raise tens of millions of dollars through individual major gifts, foundation, and corporate funding. Based in Chicago, Amy is a certified fundraising executive and has served as a trusted coach to dozens of schools via Prisma's Governance and Fundraising Academy and Generations programs, and now through many of us who have had the chance already, and the rest of us will have a chance now. So I want to welcome Amy and her colleague Lisa. For those that had an opportunity to work with Lisa earlier today in one-on-one coaching, I want to thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
And welcome home.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Wonderful to be here. I want to just start off talking about what our goals are for this afternoon. This is possibly the worst time slot of the entire day. Thank you, Jen. Because you feel like taking a nap or getting out of the building. And so I promise to keep this interactive, and this is going to be a discussion, and I truly welcome you to challenge or question anything and everything I say. The goal for this afternoon is really to get you more comfortable with the ask. Whether you have been asking for years or this is a first for you, I want you to think about yourself as an asker on behalf of your JCC or your JCC program. I want you to think about your current comfort level, and I want you to right this very second mentally make a note of like 1 to 10, 10 being I'm super comfortable, I do this all the time, I don't get nervous, and 1 being I'm totally terrified, I want to throw up when I think about asking somebody for money. So just like make a note to yourself right now, either in your head or on a piece of paper, where are you? Like right now. Right now. Got it? Good. And then I'm going to ask you again at the end to think about where you are, and that will be the measure, even if I moved you like a half a step closer in your comfort level and thinking about asking differently, I will consider that successful. I don't know if you do, because I think so much of asking is about getting over our own emotional hurdles and really digging into the stories we have to tell and getting comfortable with that as our fundraising story. Before we go too much further, I'd love to just know more, those of you who I didn't meet during coaching, I would love to just hear very, very quickly, I will cut you off if you go too long, your name, where are you from, and the role that you are currently playing. Let's start here.
Hi, I'm Dara Freiberg, and I actually don't think I've met many of you. I'm the Membership and Development Director at the Gordon Jewish Community Center in Nashville.
Great.
And I've mostly been doing the membership track, but wanted to get some development sessions in there as well.
Great. Welcome.
We know each other, yes. I'm Allie Freitas, JCC Chicago, and Director of Development.
Great.
I'm Jen Laddick, the St. Paul JCC, and I'm the Chief Development Officer.
Great.
Mary Ellen Becker, Development Manager, like Marisol, North Miami Beach.
Great.
Judy Goldberg, Memphis JCC Development.
Jonathan Norman, Palo Alto, JC Austin Family, JCC Palo Alto, Manuel.
Great.
Sarah Gindis, Durham Chapel Hill, and I'm a Development Events Manager.
Okay.
Fallon Butler, Milesonville JCC in Toronto, and I'm the Director of Development.
Karen Goldberg, Central New Jersey. I'm the Director of Member Engagement and Development.
Great.
Sarah Walchuk, Youngstown, Ohio, Jewish Community of Youngstown, and I am a Community Development Manager.
Jenna Schiffman, Strong Jewish Community Center of Greater Seattle, and I'm the Senior Development Manager.
Susan Pallets, Long Beach, California. I'm the Director of Development. Michelle Perlstein from Northern Virginia JCC. I'm the Development Director.
Adam Tennant from the Bender JCC in Rockville, Maryland. I'm the Chief Development Officer.
Great.
Brian Adler, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'm the Development Director and Assistant Executive.
Great.
Sari Karamba, Mirage Jewish Community Center in Orange County, California. Special Events and Fundraising Director.
Margaret O'Keefe from Weinstein JCC in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm the Development Director.
Hi, Stella Alshanska, Kingsway Y, JCC of Brooklyn, Development Director. Great.
Andrea Quinn, the Valley of the Sun JCC in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm also the Development Director.
Allison Tibbery, Development Director, JCC Silicon Valley.
Angie, Louisville, Kentucky, JCC, I'm the Senior Director of Development.
Beth Bernstein, Orange County, California, I'm Director of Donor Stewardship and Grants. Allison Holzman Kenny, I'm from the Kaplan JCC on the Palisades in Tenafly, New Jersey, I'm Director of Development. Great.
Great. So how many of you are already soliciting gifts one-on-one? So what I mean is, are you calling people on the phone? Are you meeting with donors face-to-face and asking for dollars? Raise your hand. Okay, so a large majority of us are doing that. That's good to know. So we're going to talk a lot about this. I want you to pull out something that you can write with right now, so it can be electronic or good old pen and paper. And I'm going to give you 5 or 6 minutes, probably closer to 5, to start thinking about your story. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to describe your JCC or program. Some of you are fundraising for a specific program. If not, I want it to be the JCC as a whole in one sentence. I want you to list 3 ways your JCC or your program enriches people's lives. I want you to express your vision or the organizational. It doesn't mean you have to have crafted the vision yourself, but is there a vision for your J's future? If so, please express it. And then I want you to describe the essence of your J or your J program in one story. If you had to just pick one, what would that story be? But can I get a volunteer who would tell us how they describe their J or J program in one sentence? Yes.
What I have to say about our J, we're unique in the fact of what's happening with a lot of J's. We're approximately 95% Jewish. And so I would describe us as we are a multicultural, multi-denominational, and multi-generational Jewish community center.
Great. Who else? I feel like I saw the big hand. Yeah.
The Strong Jewish Community Center of Greater Seattle is a place that exists to forge connection, build community, and enrich lives around a shared set of Jewish values.
Nice. I feel like that's going on your brochure or website. It's like fully thought out. Yeah.
But I wrote it.
You read it. Right. Put your name in parentheses next to it. Yeah.
So the Jewish Community Center of Youngstown is a place for the entire Mahoning Valley to create and build a community and family while enhancing the quality of life through Jewish values and shared experiences.
Nice.
We're 95% not Jewish.
95% not Jewish. Interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. What's your one sentence? Jen, you told me this was like a talkative.
Yeah, by the way, the fact that you're identifying that table as the shy table. Guys, out of your shell now. Come on.
We're like, yeah, we're an hour and 50 minutes.
That's it. We're amongst friends.
Our JCC is the town square for the Jewish community, creating a welcoming and inclusive community. I love the JCCA's visual of the town square.
I like town square.
I didn't come up with it.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, that's something.
What was the end of the sentence?
Creating a welcoming and inclusive.
Inclusive, I like that word.
Those are our
Yeah.
JCC Chicago is a not-for-profit organization based on Jewish values to create a more inspired and connected community.
I like inspired and connected. One more? Yeah.
The Alfred JCC is a diverse community center for all ages and stages in Long Beach, California.
Oh, I like ages and stages. Did you write that? Did you make that up? Or that's your thing?
I made it up, but it is one
And
of
it's
our
your thing.
things.
Okay, I like it. Keep your job. Okay. 3 ways you're enriching lives. Yeah.
I wrote down mind, body, and soul.
Mind, body, and soul. Oh, good. So we can all steal each other's language here. Yep. What else? How do you enrich lives? Yeah.
As the greatest representation of the diversity of the Orange County
community, everyone can find our place there.
Everyone finds their place. Nice. How do you enrich lives? I want to hear like a little more, go a little deeper. Yeah.
I have health and wellness programs to strengthen the body, early childhood, youth, and camp to provide safe and supportive places for your children to grow, critical social services like senior transportation, Meals on Wheels, and translation.
Nice. Nice. And I feel like, so development is so interesting. Development marketing is so interesting. I feel like I have the background music to support what I'm going to say. It's going to be very dramatic. It's so interesting because how do we market differently for campaign messaging, right, than we do for membership messaging? And I feel like I like that you touched, I feel like yours sort of just walks the line really nicely, that we can easily morph that into campaign messaging. That's great. Who else? 3 ways? Anyone have something totally different than we've heard so far? Yeah.
Our JCC enriches lives by offering a path for a young child to start their Jewish journey, provides a start to get someone back on track with a healthy lifestyle, and we're the first call for someone when they move to town looking for community and connection.
I love that. And again, strong campaign messaging. Might be great membership messaging as well, but I'm looking for strong campaign messaging. That's great. That's great. Why do we care so much about having these 3 ways really easily accessible? Why am I asking you for this?
Because you never know who you're going to come in contact with. You need to be able to speak to the mission, depending on who you're forward-facing with.
Yeah. What else? We have a very tough job in the JCC world making a case for our dollars, because some of us have very beautiful buildings, right? Some of us serve audiences who seem, or populations who seem less than needy, right? So the outside world, I was saying during coaching today, the JCCs, the synagogues, the day schools, and the camps have a really tough job because A, they may already be writing you a big check, right? If they're writing you a big check for after-school programming, early childhood education, whatever it is, camp. We have to make that case. Why do you need more from me? And aren't you achieving your financial goals through your earned revenue? What is it why is it that I need to write you that check and then write you another check out of a different account or a different account in my brain? We have to be able to make that case. So the word here I'm looking for is gift impact. What is the impact of what we do, but also what's the impact that your gift makes on the system? If we don't have readily accessible those 3 ways or 6 or whatever, but like less than 8, right? And I'd be happy with 3 ways that your J impacts people's lives, that your gift impacts people's lives. We have to have those on the tip of our tongue. And I want to frame everything we're talking about today in a way that you can take back and use it with your board of directors or your development committee. So I would like to suggest that you do a form of this exercise with them. If you don't have the language, I promise you they don't either. And how do we develop the language? We have to practice it. We have to train our lay leadership and other members of our team on the use of this language and agree on what it is. So we have to figure it out. Some of you just maybe didn't say yours, but I think doing this exercise, again, either with your lay team or with your professional team is so important because we all have to be talking that talk. I think you talked about already culture of philanthropy in an earlier session. Yeah, that's what it's about, is that we all can sort of touch that. Okay, expressing your vision for the future, JCC or your program's future. Who wants to share? Yeah.
To foster community connections and Jewish peoplehood both inside our building and throughout the community.
Fostering Jewish peoplehood. Nice. What else? How about a vision for a program that is not primarily serving the Jewish community? I want to just hear more about that. Yeah.
I said to remain an asset and a foothold within the Mahoning Valley and on the north side is acting as a convener and town square for all guests, both Jewish or non-Jewish.
Nice. that non-word is really interesting, right? It's like there's Jewish and then there's everybody
And other-
else.
I wrote in otherwise, and then I was like, no, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think we have to think about that language. Lisa and I were talking about that before. Yeah.
And I wrote a very general one that includes that term.
Okay,
I wrote,
let's hear it.
serve as a home away from home for Jewish and non-Jewish community members by providing a place where all can express themselves in meaningful ways.
So if it's Jewish and non-Jewish, can it be just community members? I mean, does anyone have, that may not be, yeah, what do you have?
We sort of say to welcome, well, how I put it, but for all members of the community and remove barriers, we can welcome the entire community.
I like that. What else do you have?
So we typically, like when they're in our grants, we say for members of the community, we don't qualify, but for our Jewish donors, then they start to see like a 95% non-Jewish JCC, so it's really important to qualify that there's Jewish participants.
Okay,
Even
so
in
you're
this-
customizing your message.
Right,
for
even
your
in our
donors.
telling a story, like I broke it into Jewish and non-Jewish categories.
I like that a lot.
Because everything's different.
I think that's smart. Anyone else? Vision?
Our vision is to continue to offer programs that best serve our entire community.
Yeah. Entire community. Yeah.
A Jewish community center for all people rather than a community center for Jewish people.
Nice. Nice.
We have a place that is welcoming and accessible to the entire community.
So I just want to clarify, that's a vision, that's not what you are now. That's like what you're striving for. Yes, yes, will you still say yes to that vision?
Well, I mean, you have limited dollars,
Yes.
right?
Oh, it's okay if you say yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I want to push that idea because donors invest in a vision. Where are you going? What do you want to be? What's the future look like for you? Oh, I'll get to that. I don't necessarily want to invest in the status quo. If you're looking to do something better and I'm excited about that, I will invest. So donors follow a leader with a vision. Does your leader have a vision? Does your leader express that vision well? If not, sit down with them, do this exercise. But really, what is that vision that you are looking for people to follow? So as much as you have to be thinking about gift impact, you have to be able to zoom in on that vision and be able to sell that vision. Where are you looking to go? And how do I, as someone who wants to support you, an investor, a philanthropic investor, how do I help you get there? Yeah.
I talk a lot about like that the JCC is that we want it to be the third place in people's lives. So, work, home,
J. Yeah.
So then Starbucks gets pushed to number 4. So,
Starbucks in the
yeah. There you go, right?
Yeah.
But so just from a standpoint of relevancy, so when you asked about a vision, that's what I thought of as like, that's a great vision.
That's a fantastic vision.
To try to achieve being the third place.
Yeah, well then I want to say to the donor, like, what do you mean by that? That sucks me in a little bit because that's an interesting concept to me. Right, how do you do that? Yeah.
So mine was more kind of the vision, strategic growth to bring enriching programs and services to all of Chicagoland. Because I felt like it would open the communication, because you don't know what people's kind of their sweet spot is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So.
And I like all of Chicagoland. In other words, like we're not everywhere we want to be yet. Right? It's okay for your vision to communicate that you're not doing everything you want to do that yet. That is not a failure. That is not a weakness. That's like, are you excited about this? We're excited about this, so let's work together to achieve this. Is this what you want? Because I want to follow a vision. Okay, your story. Who's going to share their story? We're warming up now. We are no longer shy. What do you have?
I'll share.
Yeah.
So Iantha came to our community center as a young mom looking to connect with other young moms. She met her best friend Marcy there 30 years ago. They grew their children up together at the J. Today they see each other in the halls between workouts and picking up grandchildren who go to the ECS program.
Okay, and then just finish that off for me.
And
And therefore, like, why did you choose that story? What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, I think it's an example of how we build community, and that community exists not only to Iantha and Marcy, but to their to Marcy and Iantha's children, who grew up together at the J, and now their children's children are together at the J. So that this has been a place, for, like a daily place in their lives, throughout their lives for the past 30 years, and it continues to be for each generation.
Beautiful. Yes.
A newly arrived Syrian refugee family came to Canada and had a teenage son with Down syndrome. They were referred to our JCC, where we were able to provide free personalized swim lessons for that son, as well as swim lessons for their entire family. We happened to have a personal trainer that also spoke their language because they did not speak English. And the matriarch of the family, after sessions of swimming and feeling a part of this community, expressed to this personal trainer that you are now our family.
Beautiful story. And that's why I'd like you to consider a gift of $5,000 to our annual.
Absolutely.
That story's worth 10.
Yeah, but
Yes.
it's Canadian though, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
7.5.
Another story. Yeah.
Okay, Inga, a widow who led a very isolated life, I have little notes here. We reached out to her. She became a volunteer because she felt she was much too young for the senior adult program. She was 82 at the time. So we have a senior lunch program on Wednesdays. She became the chief cook and bottle washer in that program. And to quote her, it saved my life and gave me something to look forward to all week. Inga was always rather poorly dressed, and we knew lived in a very small apartment. And she recently passed away and left $50,000 to the family.
And that story says what to you? You think that?
You know, we reached out, but it was, you just never know. But I mean, that's our main thing. It is the fundraising, but it's also being there for the entire community.
Yeah.
And having the right people in place to do the reaching out.
Yeah. And these three stories are such beautiful examples of gift impact, right? Like friendships, right? Serving a family in need and really bringing joy to their lives and giving them a community. And then being a place for this woman, you know, talk about her third place, right? Beautiful. Yeah.
In my prior career as a resident camp director, I had a family, and a month before camp was starting, one of their parents died, two of my campers, and their dad died of cancer. And as he knew he was in the hospital passing away, and before he passed away, he told his kids, I still want you to go to camp this summer. It's so important that you still go and have that community. And he passed away, and the kids, a month later, after their dad passed away, came to camp, and I was the director. And they felt at home being with their Jewish friends in a Jewish camp and have that environment. And it was very meaningful to me to be able to be there for them and for us to be able to help them in their time of need.
Beautiful. That's a great story. And probably other people in your community remember that and can relate to that. I mean, it affected the whole community. I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah. Another one. Yeah.
We had a ECC family who their daughter was not feeling well, and the parents took the child to the doctor and came back to the ECC and was diagnosed, found out that their daughter has cancer. And the whole community came together and rallied to be there for this family, and delivered meals, and they had a infant at home as well that the mother was taking care of, and the ECC stepped up and enrolled the infant into the ECC where they were a recipient of scholarship dollars. And the 3-year-old child is now 100% cured and now 17 years old and has been a recipient and an active family member of the JCC their whole life. So, and actually the mother now has come back on staff after the experience that she had being a recipient of scholarship dollars and how the JCC came together to serve them when they were in Britain.
You should do the pitch at whatever event you have next. That's a wonderful story. Yeah. One more. Yeah.
So Claire walked into my office a couple of years ago, a woman approaching her 90s, living in a senior home in the town next to us. And she was looking for a place to go swimming, and she was living on limited funds, and she had an outdoor pool in the complex where she lived, so she really just wanted an indoor pool for some summer use. And she sat in my office. I was the membership director at the time, and I asked her what she could afford, because she said she couldn't afford the full membership, and she said she could afford $50 for a few months to come in and use our pool. And so I said, okay, let's see how it goes. And she would come in several times a week during the winter season, probably swim about 20 or 30 laps each time she came, which was remarkable. And this went on for about 2 years, and she came back the second year and she asked if she could have the same arrangement for a few months. And I said, sure, and she wrote us another $50 check. And then Claire approached 90, 91, 92. When her daughters would come from the Midwest to visit, I would give them 2-week guest passes to come swim and be with their mom when they were at the JCC. And eventually they moved their mom out west with them to be closer, and Claire passed away. And the following year, we received a donation at the end of the year from Claire's daughter in her memory to thank the JCC. And we continue to receive money every year since Claire has passed away at the end of the year. Not a significant amount of money, but just in her memory to thank us for the kindness that we extended Claire during her later years of life, so she could swim a couple of times at the JCC each year.
Yeah. And her family knew that. That's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
What a gift you gave her and her daughters too. Beautiful. So why do we need these stories? And what does this have to do with asking?
Well, it makes what we do real.
Yep.
I mean, you need the emotion
Yes.
to connect with people
Yes.
and bring them into your organization.
Yeah.
They're all emotional stories.
Yeah.
And I feel like it very clearly demonstrates impact in a way that's personal and
Yes.
again, you can see it.
Yes. What else?
They could see themselves doing something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
they make that happen too with their dollars.
Yep.
It also helps to sort of demonstrate the need. So why do we need to fund these programs? Why do we need to continue to offer them at low cost or offer scholarships?
Yes. All those things. I think you're right. People like hearing about real people. So when I talk to people about what makes them nervous about soliciting, what gives them pause, a lot of times it's so interesting. I mean, there's lots of reasons, and we'll get into it. One of the reasons is I'm not sure I can answer all the questions. I'm not sure I have all the statistics that I need. What if they ask me about what portion of my budget goes to what, how much scholarship dollar they give out? I mean, this is a room full of people who solicit every once in a while. I've been soliciting for 25 years. I can count on one hand the number of tough conversations I've had. On one hand. Or maybe I didn't know the answer to the question. That's generally not what you're up against. Right? So we get all nervous about things that will probably never happen. What people want to hear about stories, I mean, think of our society is obsessed with reality television. We like hearing about real people and real lives that are touched. It's very easy to bring us to tears with a commercial. So when you're talking about real people in your community who are touched by the work you do, that's the story you should be telling. If you're nervous about soliciting, think about why. And like I said, we're going to dig into that a little bit more. But if it's because you think you don't have all the information you may need, you need your story. and I tacked on that, and that's why I would like to ask you to consider a gift of $5,000. A little bit of a joke, but not that big of a joke. Like maybe 2 more sentences. I want you to link that, like this, that's the kind of community we are. That is the work that we do in this community. A great example of the kind of work and the kind of people that are here helping us to do what we do, and that's why I'm asking you to consider a gift of $25,000 to the JCC annual campaign. I mean, again, it's not so different. They don't really care about the other things you have to say. So in case you're wondering if there really is a connection between the storytelling and the asking, they'd much rather hear the story than like the stuff on your very dry script that you were planning on saying. And all the points that you were going to make. Now, is there more to it than that? Yes, and that's why we're going to talk a little bit about relationship building in a minute, because how do I know what story to tell? I mean, there's lots of stories, and by the way, I borrow stories from my colleagues all the time. When I'm it doesn't have to happen to me, right? You told stories about things that you had nothing to do with. That's fine, that's legit. But what story, I might choose a particular story because I know that my donor, because I have a relationship with that donor, and that's how I know, because I know what moves them and what touches them. So again, I oversimplified it a little bit, but not that much. You have to have the stories though. That's how you draw people in. That's how you make it real. Again, people care less about the statistics than the real people that you've touched. And the fact that they can make a difference in people's lives like that too. That's what they want to hear. We're going to come back to your story. I want to talk more about relationship-based fundraising. How do we know what the right story is? How do we get to a place where the people with whom we have these conversations are in a position to make a gift? How do I know that once I sit down at the table and I ask for that gift, I've got a really good chance of getting it? Because I've done a lot of the work before that meeting. In general, and there are exceptions in every rule, but in general, the first time you solicit, the first time you meet is not going to be a solicitation, right? I want you to have developed a relationship with these people beforehand. So this model, by the way, of fundraising in the Jewish community, does this look familiar to you? The chicken dinner, right? There's a place for this in your campaign plan. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about this kind of fundraising. I'm talking about relationship-based fundraising. There's a place for this, transactional fundraising. What's another example of transactional fundraising? We do it all the time. What else? Phone-a-thon. Well, phone-a-thon, at least you're talking one-on-one to a person. Yeah, it's slightly transactional, but it's not fully in that category.
Year and appeal.
Yes. Year and appeal. What else?
Sponsorship. Event sponsorship.
Event sponsorship or program. Unless you called and asked somebody and had a conversation with them. Sponsorship can be relationship-based fundraising if you actually did something more than send someone a piece of paper or an email. Transactional fundraising is when I'm making my gift to a card or to a page on a website, right? Or to someone that I don't know. Then it is transactional. So a raffle, an auction, a direct mail piece, anything where I don't need to have built a relationship or even know the person to make my gift. We do work with nonprofits all the time where we go in and we assess their fundraising programs and we take a look at how they're achieving $5,000 and $10,000 gifts, and we see the pieces of direct mail that are being sent to donors at this level. And we try to not let our faces change colors when we learn that that's how they're achieving their $10,000 gifts. But that's like a normal thing that happens at nonprofits all the time. We're the only ones who are horrified, right? If someone's giving to you at that level, you're really sending them a piece of mail, that's transactional. That's where you're putting your transactional dollars. This is okay if you're looking to get your honoree to bring his or her friends and get, achieve dollars and exposure. There's a place for this. Transactional fundraising is not bad, but it's just a piece of your fundraising program. Where I'd like to see you spending more of your time is in relationship-based fundraising. My dream for all of you is that you have an assistant director, an associate director who does this, and you spend all your time at the top of the giving pyramid developing relationships with those who are already giving or have potential to give transformative gifts. Now, I know that that's not the reality for all of you, but that's my dream, that's my vision for you, right? Is that you get to a place where you're thinking differently about how you spend your time. Let's review. For most of us, this will be a review. I think I have pointers, do I? No? Okay, let's review the life cycle of a donor. So generally, we start here, we identify, right? How do we create our lists, right? We identify those who have the potential to give. Then we solicit, and then we solicit them again. Right? Sound familiar? Yeah. And what we do is we skip the two most important pieces. We're skipping cultivation, and we're skipping stewardship. And this is what gives fundraisers a bad name. Is that the only time I hear from you people is when you're calling me for my gift, right? And therefore, you know, I have lay leadership telling me, well, so-and-so avoids my phone calls. Well, if you were taking them to lunch in between, asked if there were, you know, 4 times that they heard from us that were non-solicitation conversations or communications, they might not be avoiding the phone call. We can't blame them. Right? The solicitation is a very one-dimensional single point of contact. Cultivation is what happens before we solicit the gift. So I use that term, people use it differently. I use it to describe the process by which we turn a non-donor into a donor. What are the steps or the touches that we must make? How do we educate and engage our donors to get them to the point where they are ready to give? That's cultivation. Right? So how do I know what story to tell? I've developed a relationship. I've met them several times. I know what's going on in their family. I know what moves them, what they're excited about. Right? You should be doing this with your board, because I hope that your board is giving at a leadership level or has capacity to give at a leadership level. Right? So what are the questions that you must ask during this courting phase in order to be prepared for the ask? And once I get to the ask, what do I need to know? When will you ask? For what will you ask? Who's going to be on the solicitation? Who needs to be at the solicitation? Is this someone who makes decisions about giving with their spouse or partner? Is this someone where we absolutely don't want the spouse or partner there? Right? This is what you need to know. And how do you find that out? Sometimes you have to ask them and say things like, you know what? I want to talk to you about a leadership giving opportunity at the J. Is it better for it just to be me and you, or is it best that we invite your spouse or partner to be part of that conversation? People will tell you when you ask them. You shouldn't be guessing. That's part of building that relationship. And then stewardship is the process by which we engender loyalty from our donor base, that we get them giving again. The touch points after the ask is stewardship. Right? How do we upgrade that gift? How do we elevate that relationship? What are we doing in between? Solicitation, I hope, is once a year. What are we doing the rest of the year? That's one day. That could be 2 hours of one day. You have the whole rest of the year not to mess it up for the next time. This is the crux of your job. This is where we need to be spending our time and energy. And yet I know, because I was a development director for many, many years before I started consulting, that we get sucked into all that other stuff. Right? I'm sitting on the phone with a donor about the $72 ad for the 4th time this month. How am I taking people out to lunch and coffee? Right? You have to think to yourself, what am I doing? How many $72 ads do I have to get to add up to that one coffee with the $10,000 donor? Something has to give. And it's hard to make that case, trust me. I get it, to throw away the ad book. But this is a much better use of your time and energy. And again, how do we know if they're ready? I get to ask this question all the time. How do we know if they're ready to make the gift? Right? These are the check boxes. ABC, ability, belief, connection. If you cannot check all 3 with a fair degree of certainty, probably not ready. And by the way, this does not say here, there's no L, do they have to be in love with my program? No. No, you don't see that here. Ability to make a meaningful gift has to be on there for you to be spending time courting, right? Cultivation or stewardship. So we need to know that, and that's fairly easy to find out because we can well screen anybody now. If you have never well screened a prospect, send me one name. I will not run more than one name for you, but I will run one name for you. If you send to my email address, you have to send me a name and address. If you just want to see what a well screening looks like.
What is it?
So it will tell you, it'll either be helpful or you'll say that this is ridiculous and not so helpful, and I get both of them, but it basically will give you a sense for donors in the US, that's what my system will pull. It will give you a sense, if it is anything that is public giving, it will pull into this report. So if they have made gifts to nonprofits that publish an annual report, it will pull in. Our federation, for instance, in Chicago does not publish gifts online, so it will not pull in their federation gift. We have to use our book of life to look somebody up. But if they make a gift to an organization that publishes online, it will pull in. It will pull in all of their political giving because they have to report that. You'll generally get the value of their house and any other property that they own, and sometimes their investments will pull in as well. So it'll give you a giving range and an income level, basically. Sometimes, again, I hear very mixed things, so it's not foolproof, but if you want to test it on one name to just see if it's worth it for you to invest in software, feel free to shoot me an email. But again, ability to make the gift, right? That's more about you asking a lot of questions in the community than it is about well screening. Believe in the mission, right? Caring about what you do, and connection with the J or someone at the J. We have to be able to check off these three boxes to know. And again, this is about developing relationships. So you can know those things, but it doesn't mean that they're ready for the ask if you have not spent the time, or someone at the organization has not spent the time understanding what motivates them. Understanding what they're passionate about. Where else do they give? You have to do the work. And you have to develop the relationship. And if not you, someone else. I mean, as a development director, I sort of consider myself the conductor, right? The orchestrator of all these things that would happen. So sometimes I'm sending my board members out on asks. Sometimes I'm sending my CEO out on an ask, right? Or to do coffee or lunch. A lot of what I did was help figure out who the relationship manager for this prospect should be, and then what does that cultivation stewardship process look like? And I'm there to make sure that everybody's doing their part. Another thing I will offer you is we're happy to show you a sample cultivation or stewardship timeline or plan or checklist. What does that look like for a typical major gift prospect? How many times a year might you be in touch with them, and how might you be in touch with them? Since that's not my topic today, I have to move on. But
Amy, can I just make a quick point about this, just because we've had some interesting conversations over the last couple days? Yeah. Because you said something that I want to make sure people really clued into, which is that we've talked about those cases where some of our CEOs not in the room, but the CEOs of people in the room are more involved. And it's important to remember that when they are involved in a solicitation, the development director still has a critical role in making sure that they're doing everything that they need to do, and that you have an important role, even if it's in supporting them. But it's never okay to say that that's the CEO's donor exclusively.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. 100%. In fact, I would go even further to say, those are my asks, you just went on the solicitation. Like, I feel like I'm taking credit for every one of those gifts because I made it happen. That's your job. I don't care if I'm at the meeting or not, or in some of the meetings I want to be at, but I can't be the primary relationship holder with all of them. But if I'm setting up the ask, I've done the research, I've prepped my CEO, I've gotten a board member to go with, I mean, I'm doing it all. I'm orchestrating the ask. That's your solicitation. Of course that's your donor. Doesn't matter if you're out in front of them or they know you when they see you in public or not. You made that happen. That's your job. Right? This isn't, about the exposure. I do want you to get some exposure. I do want you to practice being in front of people and telling that story. It just has to be someone with whom you have that natural relationship. that you're building a relationship. And you have to know which donors need exposure to your ED or CEO. Right, and you can't do that any other way other than sitting down and going through your list together. With your development committee, which by the way is a whole other session that we're not going to talk about today, why they work and why they don't. With your board of members of your board of directors and your senior team. You know what is my topic? My topic is asking. And so I want to tie this to, I think the number one thing that stops us from asking is sort of our own discomforts, right? If you can't get over your emotional hurdle, let's say you decided, I actually want to be out there more. I'm willing to be out there more telling the story, but there's something stopping me. So if what's stopping you is you're getting bogged down with other work, do that sort of return on investment thing with your portfolio to figure out where you're going to get the biggest bang for your hour. Is it sitting doing that other work in your office, or is it when you're out meeting with donors in the field? I guarantee you'll come up with the right answer. I do. But if what's stopping you is your own discomfort, like I want to be that person, but I'm just not yet, I'm not comfortable with it, then we have to examine our own emotional hurdles. And I want you to think about what, and again, I said to you at the beginning of the session, I want you to think about not only yourself in this scenario, but I want you to think about presenting some of this material to your development committee or to your board. And you have to think about what stops them. Why do you have a board full of people who won't ask for money on behalf of an organization that they spend so much time on and they care so deeply about? What's going on? How does that make any sense?
It's their discomfort.
Okay, which one?
2 and 3.
2 and 3. Abusing the relationship and asking for a favor. I think asking for a favor is the biggest. Yeah, what else? What else can you personally relate to here? Do you think is your
Lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge is big.
The one I think you might be missing, which our board comes up with a lot, is the quid pro quo. I'm happy to ask you for $5,000. Just understand, is there then going to add, it's almost like a 2-for-1 kind of thing.
Yes. And I think that's a reality for some people. Right? For some organizations, I'm not sure it's true. If I'm asking for my kids' Jewish day school and you're a fellow parent, you're really going to ask me for American Heart Association? Like, it's not really the same thing. Both of our kids go here. So I think there is, you know, I like training to the objections, by the way, and I think you have to walk them through that, like, what if that happens, what do you say, kind of a thing. Maybe it really is true that you have to give to theirs, but maybe it's not, because that's not something you care about, and yet we both care a lot about the continuity of our Jewish community or our community, period. Yeah.
What I find challenging is that we have a very thriving Jewish community and beautiful building, and we're not poor, and we don't have, you know, all that. So it's hard to come up with a compelling case when the people, you know, they're giving to cancer, and they're giving to all these other organizations. We're just asking for money for scholarships for kids that can't afford to go to camp or preschool, but they're in a much higher category.
Right. Our people generally are not starving or dying. It is true. That's true, right? But again, we have to tap in. The best prospects for your campaign are people who care about what you do. So if you're going to sell JCC to someone who, pardon my French, really doesn't give a shit about what you do, and they do care a lot about childhood cancer, because who doesn't, right? But they have a personal connection to that, then you may be barking up the wrong tree. And we're not looking to convert people here. We're looking to zoom in on the people who clearly care a lot about what we do and make that connection. The reason why I'm never, ever an uncomfortable solicitor, and I've been soliciting a long time, by the way, I don't solicit for any of my clients, I'm not allowed to. So when I talk about my own solicitation experience, it's as a volunteer. I'm just going off the board of my synagogue. I solicit for my synagogue. I've solicited for other organizations in the community. I'm never uncomfortable because I secretly think to myself, I'm doing you the favor. It's a totally different mindset. I think to myself, my experience with this organization makes me feel good. Giving to this organization actually makes me feel good. Tzedakah makes people feel good. Doing the right thing makes people feel good. And fulfilling your philanthropic goals makes you feel good. So people are only going to give to you at a major gift level. I mean, yes, will they give you, $25 because you're running in the marathon for some charity they don't care about? They will. But will they give you a major gift for something they don't care about? Mostly they won't, unless it's a favor that needs to be returned, right? But in general, no. So I'm only going to people that I know care, either use these services, right? I have some evidence of the fact that they care about what we do. And I'm only asking if I can communicate that I'd like you to join me in doing something that makes me feel really good, and I think that it'll make you feel good too. I'm giving you an opportunity to fulfill your philanthropic goals. In other words, I'm doing you the favor. I never say I'm doing you the favor, but I think to myself, I'm doing a favor. And all I can do is open the door. My job is the door opener. I give you an opportunity to feel good about your tzedakah, to feel good about what you're doing, to make a difference in the community. It's your decision whether you step through it or not. I don't control that. So get over yourselves. You don't make the decision. It's not up to you. You're giving yourself the impression that you have some kind of control here. You have zero. You have opened the door, and they get to walk through it or not. If it's a no, it's really, I don't feel bad. It's no skin off my back. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right mission. They're not the right people. It doesn't matter. You're resentful. You see the cars they drive, and you see the vacations they take, and you think they can afford it. It's not for them. Move on to the next person, because it is for someone else. It's not for them. There are people, we all know them, who are just not philanthropic. They can afford it. It isn't about the money. Maybe that's not how they grew up in their family. Right? Yes.
I find myself in a unique situation where I'm stuck in the friend zone. I am very close with the Jewish Day School. I was the PA head for 3 years. I had 3 kids there, and Sarah, let's go out, let's go to a show, have some drinks. And as I'm having drinks, I'm like, oh man, a lot of donors here.
Yeah.
This is a little weird. So now I am socializing from a parent hat, but then you walk right next door to our JCC, and there I am needing gifts.
Yes. And I see that as a positive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I see that you.
I know. What an opportunity! I
I
have to be able to flip it.
You have to, right, you have to announce, and we're going to get to that in a second, that you're wearing your JCC hat when you have this conversation.
Right.
You're not going up to them at the bar for this other organization and be like, hey, you want to talk about your gift?
Round of shots, let's talk about capital campaign.
Well, but I would always rather go to people I know and I'm comfortable with than a total stranger. I have no relationship. I have nothing to base the conversation on if I don't know them. So now you know. Did you say Jewish day school or day school?
It's a Jewish day school.
Okay, so now you know Jewish education. Like we have that in common. You've got a basis for this conversation. I think that's a positive.
Right.
You can't abuse it.
Exactly.
But you can use your knowledge and your comfort, and now you're seeing them in other places. I think that's fantastic.
I just need to.
You have to get over yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. People.
You gotta get over yourself.
Can I just remind you? People are not going to give to an organization they don't want to give to because you ask them. They're just not.
Right.
They may give because you gave them that opportunity and they wanted to anyway. I always remember that I was giving some training. And using the example, this is a couple of years ago, and using the example that JCC Camp Shy, which is ironic, now we're working with them in Chicago, I used to use them as an example of an organization that I loved, that was part of my childhood. My mother was a camper there and a counselor there, and that the only reason that I have not made a gift to JCC Camp Shy is because they haven't asked me. Like I should this very minute get on my computer and go and make a gift, but I won't, and I won't remember 10 minutes from now to do it. So I used that example, and probably I said it in like 2 sessions, that my not making a gift was because no one's come and asked me, not because, in other words, no one gave me the opportunity. Of course I could go on and do it if I wanted to, but no one asked me. And literally like 1 week after I said that in my 2nd session, Ron Levin, who's the director at the time, said, "Can I take you to lunch?" I mean, like someone told him, of course he did. And I made my first gift to JCC Camp Shy. And by the way, maybe I was planning on making a gift of $100, you know, or $50. But because he took me to lunch, I promise you I did not give him $50. You know, so not only did he follow up and ask me, but I made a bigger gift because I was engaged personally.
Amy, can we go to lunch?
I think I owe Allie first. That's what this is about, right? So getting comfortable, and again, get yourself out of the way. Stop thinking that you have power and control. You don't. All you're doing is opening the door. They get to choose if they walk in or they don't walk in. And if they don't, you just have to let it go. You can ask yourself questions. Was I the right person, right? I mean, you can sort of do that, but you'll have a sense of whether it had anything to do with you or not. You'll have a sense of how it went. You just have to move on. But if you really remove that, and if you actually think to yourself secretly, I'm doing them the favor because I'm opening the door to this really great feeling. I get a good feeling when I make a gift to my JCC or to Camp Shy. It makes me feel good. I want that organization to continue and thrive, right? And you have the opportunities to do that too. If you approach it that way, you will get less nervous and you will be less uncomfortable. You have to let that stuff go. And now you have the story to tell, which feels really comfortable because you know your story. It isn't some language that you're not comfortable with. You have to use that. Questions about this? Yeah.
So when there's many different buckets that
Yes.
you're focused on,
Yes.
For instance, when you're trying to take someone who is committed annually and it's a renewal every year, how do you convert them to a special project without abusing the relationship, you know, when you know they have maybe the inkling of an interest, but like I think that's a struggle for at least our organization.
Yeah. And then, by the way, I mean, converting them to a special project, I think is easier than getting them back out of a special project and giving to Gen Up again. So I think that's what I thought you were going to ask me.
No,
Go
I
and
mean,
answer
it's the whole cycle. You want them to still do both.
Yes, okay, fine. That I get, right. So, right, that's in addition to, I was talking to one of the groups, coaching groups this morning, that I believe in the one ask, integrated ask concept. So if you want them, let's just say they've been giving you $1,800 for your annual campaign for a couple of years, and in addition to that, you've got this special playground project, whatever it is, you know, you're renovating the playground. You'd like them to also make a gift. I want that done in one conversation, not 2 separate asks. And it has to flow. In addition, you have to communicate right away that in addition to your generous annual contribution, I'd like to ask you to consider a gift, a special gift this year to our playground campaign of $3,600. It's really one sentence. And that tells the donor that I'm not looking for an instead of. You shouldn't wait for that question to be asked. It's one conversation. So you have to be coordinating with your team to make sure that annual, and by the way, let's say you know, because this came up again this morning, what if you're not ready to do that second ask at the same time and you really have to get your annual? I mean, the timing doesn't always work great. So I would say during the solicitation for the $1,800, in addition to that, I want an opportunity to tell you in a month or 2 when we roll out this campaign about a special opportunity. I would just let them know there's another ask coming, so that they're not like, well, I just gave you in October and now you're asking me again in December. If you're going to do another ask that year, you have to tell them you're going to. I prefer you do it all at once. Yeah? You don't look convinced.
No, I am. I'm thinking about some of the mistakes that already have
Maybe.
been made.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's not foolproof because timing is tricky. Yes, and then yes.
We are really siloed.
Yeah.
For survival, our different departments and programs have made asks around the community.
Okay.
So fast forward, we've heard from a number of significant donors. Please, I don't want to hear from Bob on Tuesday and Sally on Thursday.
Yes.
And I run into Mike in the gym on, the following Wednesday. One ask, I'll write one check, you guys figure it out.
Yeah. And that's fair.
It's great,
That's
but
fair.
now we have Mike that's like this,
Yes.
and Sally like this, like you can't call him, I've got my,
Yeah.
dance whatever coming
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
so how do we get people to determine who's the best person to make the ask?
Yeah, I would want to know, again, who has the strongest relationship. I think that happens a lot in the J system. By the way, I worked in a day school for 5 years. Happened all the time where I wanted the annual gift, and then there was the yearbook fundraiser, and then there was the PTA fundraiser. I mean, and our parents were saying, we feel like every other week there's another thing. And finally we said, I mean, the development director is the one to rein that in and really put it all together, right? You have to have a calendar. And that calendar has to be shared between the departments. So even if you're not going to do one ask, if that's impossible for you, you do have to work out the calendar. When are your mailings? Who's asking for what? What's the overlap look like? Who's getting more than one ask? Are we okay with this? I mean, our rule was that anyone giving $1,800 or above got one ask. And we really published that. If you're going to be a member of, we call the Society of Patrons, with $1,800 plus, all the way up to $100,000 annual gift, if you're going to be giving at that level, what we can commit to you is you'll get one ask per year. Yeah, and you won't get attacked by all these low. If you're giving lower than that, too bad for you, you're going to get 20 asks. But, but the truth is, even then you have to coordinate. But what can you commit to your donors? I think it's fair if someone's going to commit to you at whatever, maybe your major gift level is $2,500 or $5,000, whatever it is, that you try and protect that a donor at that level from getting too many asks. And if there are going to be multiple asks, you are the correct place, the development office is the correct place to collect all that information and design a calendar and maybe meet to discuss. If a donor says, I want one ask, that's what the donor gets. And so we have to sit down and, you know what, ask for enough that all those things get covered so everyone's happy.
But we're gonna ask for that plus a little.
There you go. Yeah.
What if your CEO is the major asker
Yeah.
of your building,
Yeah.
of your JCC, and they do it completely different, and they don't believe in the one ask?
I think I need a coaching session with your CEO. Again, I think this has to be a collaborative process. I mean, it's, listen, I don't know how to answer that question, but I don't think it's best practice. I really don't think it's best practice. Again, more and more, if we're talking about building a culture of philanthropy within the J, there's lots of teams that need to be talking to each other. And if you think one person does, behavior doesn't impact the next, or how a donor is communicated with by all different parties is important. Yeah.
I have a bit of an answer.
Yeah, please.
Which is that,
Help, Jen.
no, in part, I know the people. I know the players and I know the field so well as you do, Amy, I know,
Yeah.
but I've been in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Look, the reality is that your CEOs, executive directors are expecting you to be the expert, even when they act like they are the expert. And in some cases, in your JCC, this is true, your CEO is having a lot of success. It's okay to say, I know your method is successful. You don't have to listen, but I'm going to tell you. Everything I read and everything I know and everything my colleagues say, there's another way. And maybe we could even be more successful, right? No matter what success is, you could always raise more. There's always more. So I think that there is a way for you to still take that stance, whether or not your CEO or your exec or your board chair, your committee chair listens, that's not the point. But keep fighting the fight, right? And keep pointing it out. And I think these, coming out of sessions like this, it's such a perfect opportunity to say, this is what I heard from so many of my colleagues. This is what the experts told us. You can pull yourself in, whether you've been saying it for a long time or not. Use language like we, not you, right? I think we've been doing this wrong. I learned we've had this wrong. Even if you've had it right, you have to make it, you can't put them on the defensive, right? You've got to bring them in. So that's how I would begin to approach that conversation. You have a little added challenge.
Yes, and then
So I keep going back. I'm struggling with the greatest fear of fundraising being the weak case and then the example we shared. And so, we struggle where, as a Jewish community center, and then we're not serving Jews, and then people don't see who we are, and it was like this really big deal, and we aren't the children's hospital, like that raises, $3 million, like we're not that. So we changed our story a little bit. And I get that that's the point of this whole thing, but the easy way to put it is our camp JCC. When I came in, I started as camp director, we had 30 kids. When I left, we had 150, and this year we keep fundraising, and we're gonna have about 250. Wow. And the United Way is paying for 50 camper minimum. And it's because they're in the city schools, and we went to their donor and said, listen, we do it the best. No one else can do it. We do it, and they're paying for before and after care for a minimum of 50 kids. And they fully scholarship the whole thing for the campers. And so I think that it's all about how we frame the story. And in Youngstown, we're really unique, and I get that, and we've changed that story. But we've been able to support programming, and we have a program called Delay the Disease, which we partner with the hospital, and it's for Parkinson's patients. And twice a week they come in and have a Parkinson's fitness class, and we were able to get community funding for group counseling for caretakers and individuals, but we're getting people with chronic illnesses in. We're able to bolster our programming by finding and meeting the needs in the community that strengthen our case, finding the gaps. So I don't know, I'm having a really hard time with the weak case being a fear, because I feel like it has become my job to get rid of the weak case. There is no weak case. You just have to find how to create the case and who to create it with.
Yeah.
And I keep struggling with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, and I think that you have to be comfortable making the case. So is the case weak, or is it that the case has not really been identified by your senior team, and therefore you're having trouble articulating it? Right? You have to practice it, and again, your board has to practice it. It may not come naturally. You have to be doing some discovery about what moves people in the community, and the case can be customized and should be customized depending on who you're talking to. But if you're developing marketing materials, you just have to have a case, right? It's not like, if you're this, it's this, and if you're that. Again, if we're putting something up on the website, it's for everybody. So what does that universal language look like, and is it compelling? Who can you test it on? Right? There's a lot of marketing directors turned development directors in this room, right? It's like, we have to test that messaging and see what sticks, what resonates. Yeah.
We've talked about the one ask, really for the individual donor, but this goes for my corporate sponsors as well. We have several events that they do, and then I come to them, I'm telling them, I'm coming to you once.
Good.
This is what we have throughout the year. What would you like to sign up for? This also goes for at the event, at the gala. I'm not going to give the donor opportunities to give $5 here, $10 there, bid on that, do that. It's a beautiful gala. Everyone has fun the entire time. There's one ask at the gala, and it's the table captain. They give their story of why they give you the pledge card, they collect the pledge card. This takes 15 minutes out of the whole gala, and that's it.
Yeah, very streamlined, that's
and
nice.
we saw a tremendous difference from one year to the other to make sure that there was one ask.
Yeah.
And the feedback, the candid feedback that I received from guests it was just so much fun. It was just like socializing with all my friends. They didn't think of it as, I don't want to go to the gala because they're going to ask me for something 10 times.
Yeah. By the way, what we did with our corporate sponsorship program is not give people an opportunity to pick and choose, but said, if you are coming at the corporate $10,000 corporate sponsorship level, you're a corporate sponsor all year long for all of our programs.
Right, right.
So you have to customize it, right? Because if they were already giving you 5 and 5 for 2 different things, then you're not asking them for 10 because you're already getting that. So maybe you're asking them to go up to 12 or whatever it is, the next level.
It's an a la carte menu. So
Yeah.
at this level, then you get to pick 3 of these choices.
Okay, so whatever works for you, but again, if you've got a corporate sponsorship program and you're struggling with that integrated ask or single ask, it probably doesn't hurt you to say you're a corporate sponsor all year long, and here are the benefits of each of these levels. And any big event, you're that board thinking our corporate sponsors will be up. Yeah.
This is a question for advice.
Yeah.
So we sometimes, this is to the case point, is sometimes we'll say, like 25% of our operating budget comes from contributing. you know, to sort of put it out there.
Yes.
So that people will, in case people think that they know that you charge money for dues,
Yes.
program fees or whatever.
Yes.
Do people care about
I mean,
that?
I would say that in and of itself is not a case for support, you know, is not a strong case. But what I will say is if people don't understand your financial model, like, why do you need my money, right? You charge all this, you charge for camp, you charge. If someone asks me that kind of a question, I'd love to have that stat at my fingertips to say, you know what, we actually count on 25% of our revenue to come from philanthropy. It's a big part of our financial model, and that's why a contribution from someone like you helps make us tick, right? So that's where I might use that rather than putting that out front where I think like the majority of people don't care. But for someone who doesn't understand why you have to fundraise, I think that's an important piece to say. Like, this is, you know, part of our revenue comes from philanthropy. Super important to what we do, right? We can't function without it. Oh.
When you were you said you were at a Jewish day school.
Yes.
Was it a similar?
Very similar, right? I'm already writing you a $25,000 check. Why do you need another one? Right? Well, I'm not sure if you knew that we give out over $1 million a year of scholarship support. $1 million, right? Which means we have to raise even more of that. And our commitment is that every Jewish child have the opportunity to have a Jewish education regardless of financial need. That's our commitment. And that's why we count on philanthropy, which is separate than fee for service, right? You get really strong services for the check that you write. Your child gets an excellent Jewish education. We want to talk to you about your philanthropy. Different buckets. Yeah.
I don't want to go into a huge rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but I wanted to go back to this gala thing about the auctions, and
Yes.
that takes an incredible amount of resource
Yes.
and committee
Yes.
garbage
Yes.
to try to. What do you think about that? If you could answer it quickly.
I mean,
all
again,
those things, distractions.
You know, it's return on investment. I mean, but the organization that's telling you they're raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, we work with a Jewish day school that raises $300,000 at their auction. Okay, am I going to tell them to remove that? No, it's you know, it's a community builder and they raise a lot of money. If they spent all that time and they raised $30,000, I would tell them to scrap it. So I think it's about return on your investment. Is it, you know, is there a better use of your team's time, of your volunteers' time? Imagine if you had all those people going out asking for gifts and not stuff. Like, you know, dollars. So I think, is that realistic? Could you do that? What's the real, you know, if you apply staff time to that, again, we're talking about transactional fundraising event, is it worth your time? What could you be doing with your, you know, one of my development directors told me she spends 300 hours on an event that does not net anything that would impress any of you. Okay, so 300 hours, I can think of a lot of things you could do with 300 hours and raise much more money. I mean, that staff time is a real thing. Someone back here. Yeah.
So I was just thinking about when you pulled up the list, the asking for too much.
Yeah.
There's an opposite that sometimes happens, which is our CEO likes to talk about, you know, asking for too little. I think because maybe at one point, one donor said something when there was an ask, this was at a different organization, that he was with, where they said, I can't believe you're asking me for this. I'm offended, I can give you so much more. So I've heard that story, and I think, you know, sometimes that's something that I think a lot about is that balance. And I know even when you're talking about the wealth engine, it sort of gives you that perspective. But oftentimes, you know, what we do is obviously we have the relationships and we look at the history of the giving and, you know, try to be very educated in terms of where we're going with it. But I'm just curious about your thoughts about that and how to maybe approach that conversation, even with the CEO, of I actually think that you can offend somebody by asking for too much too, that it can't be they were giving $5,000 to $10,000 and then we're suddenly saying, all right, let's talk about a $100,000 gift all of a sudden. So I'm
Yeah,
just curious
listen,
about your
I
thoughts.
think, I mean, again, I've been soliciting a long time, and I don't remember ever, not one time in 25 years, offending someone by asking for too much money. I don't think asking for too much stops people from asking. I mean, asking for too little is what stops people from asking. I do think people get nervous about asking for too much. So it's not that it's not a thing. I will remember for the rest of my life the time where I asked for too little and the donor said to me, oh, I'm so glad you asked me for 30 because I thought you were gonna ask me for 50. And I was all prepared for that and I'm thinking, oh no, you know what I mean? Then I just knew that the ask was too little and still that's like 12 years ago and I still remember it. So the asking for too much, I don't think, I mean, I've way over, you know, we went for $1 million ask and they ended up at 50. I mean, we asked for like way too much. Were they upset or offended? No. Did they laugh? Yes. You know, so I think that's been the worst is like someone laughs and says, why do you think I could give that much? Like, well, I'm just curious where'd that number come from? And you have to be ready to answer that question, right? I don't remember ever being in a solicitation or a report back that someone was offended, especially if you can back up what you're saying, which is like, you know what, we've looked into the other organizations that are important to you and the level of support that you or your family foundation has offered. We know what you've done for the other institutions in town, and we know how important the J is to you and to your family. If that's not something you can consider, let's talk about what you could consider. I mean, I just turn that conversation into like, let's go back to what you can do, not what you can't do. Right? Generally, I don't think people are offended. You know, sometimes they're the opposite. Like, oh, I'm impressed that you think I can give that much money. I can't. But, you know, but then again, I also don't want to be the next person to throw out the number if that's what happens, because I don't know, are they talking about like taking off 10? Are they talking about like a little less than? I don't know where I shot. So I don't want to be the next person to say like, I know I asked you for 10, but now you consider 5. I definitely would push them to say like, what is a comfortable gift for you? What is something that you could feel really good about? Let them come back, because you may be surprised that you weren't that far off, you know, and you certainly, the best thing you've done is totally reset, because I still think that the family that gave us 50 and not $1 million was probably thinking of giving us 10 and went up to 50 because we asked them for $1 million. I still think you reset expectations when you ask for a lot of money. I think you're more in danger of asking for too little than too much, because if you ask for too much, even if you're not going to get to that number, you still sort of set that bar. Like I can't, even when you know, solicitors call me on the phone and they don't know who I am or what I do, and they say, would you make a gift? I would say, how much are you asking me for? You know what I mean? Like, let me teach you how to do your job, because I don't know if you're, like, what did I give you last year? Do this properly, right? Nobody remembers, by the way. Correct. What they gave you last year, if it wasn't a major gift. I don't know, did I give you 50? Did I give you 100? So you always should say, thank you for your gift last year of 100. Will you consider 125 this year? Right? We have to lead our donors. And the purpose of throwing out an ask amount, even if it's too much, is to set that standard. Right? So that is not the thing to be afraid of. You have to do your homework. You have to have a reason. But sometimes you're shooting a little bit in the dark. Maybe they haven't made that many communal gifts. Maybe there isn't a lot to look at. And in that case, sometimes what we do is we bring with a menu of opportunities. Bless you. If I have no idea if this person's going to be at $25,000 or $250,000 for a capital campaign, I might bring ask everywhere in between. I might say, like, here's a menu of giving opportunities. I'd like to ask you to be up here, but if I'm not so sure, I might give them 4 or 5 different options. And so then it's not embarrassing for them to say, like, well, I actually think I'm really here. Right? So maybe you offer a couple of different possibilities at different levels.
That's the direction we've been going in.
Good.
Sort of the tiered.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm skipping a couple slides on reasons, motivations for giving, why people give, why they don't give. You have access, right, Jen, to the PowerPoint if you want to see that, but I'm looking at the time and wanting to move us along. I do want to spend some time on appointment making, because I want you to commit in your mind to doing some face-to-face asking. I think we have fallen back in this digital age. I get a ton of questions from my clients. Is it okay to solicit via email? Is it okay to solicit via text? Is it okay? You know, and again, they can't see the horrified look on my face when they ask me that question, but we are moving so far away from personalized relationship-based asking that I want you to think about what you can commit to in terms of some face-to-face asks this year. right? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 6? Is it 1? But I want you to commit to at least 1. Practice what we're talking about today. And why? Why is face-to-face asking more effective? What do you think? Let me start with this. What do you think the difference is, statistically speaking, of success? The difference in success face-to-face versus phone. What do you think face-to-face?
Oh, it's a much higher success.
higher.
It's much easier to say no via text,
Yes.
email, or
Yeah.
ignore when you have the person sitting there face
Yeah.
to face.
So what's your guess?
85-15.
Very close. 80-20.
80-20.
80-20. So if you actually get the appointment, you have an 80% chance of walking away with a pledge or a gift. Why? Because it's harder to say no to you face to face, and by the time they have taken the appointment and you've been honest about what you're there to do, they've already decided they're making a gift. If you get the appointment, you're getting the gift. In other words, you could still screw it up, I guess, once you get there face to face. You don't do what I tell you to do, but you've got a very good chance just by showing up of walking away with the gift. That is the case. If you call me on the phone, which a lot of you do, to make that gift, because it's hard to get in front of someone, which is why we're going to spend more time talking about appointment making than asking, because I think that's the harder of the two. Bless you. If you get someone on the phone, you have no idea what they're doing on the other end. I don't even want to tell you the things that I do on the phone. Well, not during the workday, not when I'm talking to Jen or Lisa, obviously. But like, if someone calls me in the evening, I'm seriously like muting, making dinner, helping me my kids with homework, and having a conversation at the same time. You have so little of my attention. You have no idea if they're reading email, what else they're doing. We are a society of multitaskers. So I don't want you to solicit this gift on the phone. Plus, I think it communicates a very high degree of respect. If someone says, and this is this big shift and change, you've never solicited my gift face-to-face before, we always talk about this, you don't need to make a trip to come tell me. This, like what, this is this new thing, why do you suddenly want to meet with me face-to-face? And they get nervous, you're going to ask them for a lot more money than maybe you are going to ask for. Right? So it's communicating respect. You have to say to them, listen, you've been a long-time donor to the organization. I want to update you on what we're working on and talk to you about some new opportunities and possibilities. Right? Why do they take that appointment with you? Okay, so here's why the face-to-face ask, right? So the first thing, if you're committing to, let's say, between 1 and 5, can we get like a yes, 1 and 5? Anyone more than 5? Gonna go on more than 5 face-to-face ask? Okay, great. Yes, we have 4 or 5. I would like you to call your best prospects first. And that is, in other words, people who you are 90% plus sure are actually gonna take the meeting with you, because if you get a no from the first 3 people, you're not going to number 4 on your list, I promise you. Right? Early success gives you the confidence to go on. So I want you to call the sure thing first, the easiest person first, and then you're motivated to call number 2 on your list. And I also want you to know in advance what you're gonna say. I want you to, and by the way, if you need the script, if you need the talking points, if that makes you feel more comfortable, I'm totally okay with that. I feel that it like stilts the conversation and it makes me less natural, and so I purposely don't read this stuff because I know I sound awkward when I do it, but if it makes you comfortable to have a script, an appointment making script, I can send you a sample one. And maybe it makes your board or your development committee members more comfortable because they're not comfortable with this. But knowing in advance what you're going to say, right? Why, again, what is it that, there's Lisa, by the way, she's asking for an appointment. Right? It's okay, by the way, to, again, I don't want you to be stiff. I don't want the conversation to be stilted. I want you to establish rapport, but then I want you to put your JCC hat back on and say, you know what, I'm actually calling my JCC hat on right now after we've talked about soccer or school or whatever it is that we've talked about. I want you to be normal and natural and talk about your kids, because that's what a lot of us talk about. But then I want you to pull it back at some point and know what it is that you're trying to do. Also, we tend to lapse into apologetic speaking. It drives me absolutely crazy to hear people say, I'm so sorry to bother you, is this a bad time? Like right away we give them permission to treat us as a nuisance. right? So if you, instead of saying, I'm so sorry, you're so busy, right? If you stop apologizing, you do not allow yourself to use apology, the word apology or sorry during the conversation, and instead say, I'm really excited to talk to you about this new program or this new opportunity or this facility that we're building, right? That is contagious. If you act excited about it and you don't act apologetic, remember, you're doing them a favor in the back of your mind, right? I'm giving you an opportunity to fulfill your philanthropic goals. If you treat the conversation that way, they will engage and they will treat you with more respect. If you act like they're doing you this big favor by even having a conversation, they will say it is a bad time. I am kind of busy. I don't even ask them. I don't want to know because I actually just want to make an appointment and get off the phone, right? This is not going to take a long time. I don't want to accidentally end up soliciting them on the phone. That is the last thing I want to do. So the create interest is that remark that I just gave you, right? I'm really just calling because I want to set up time on both of our calendars. I want to tell you about this new program or new project or what's new about our annual campaign. And then I want to get right to the appointment, right? So I created a little spark of interest, like here's the cool thing that's going on. I want to sit down and talk to you about it. Does next Tuesday when we're both at soccer pickup work? We can meet 15 minutes early. No, I have 3 additional options for you, ready to go, right? It's very hard to say no if I offer you 4 choices, right? Because people feel weird saying no to 4 different times. So have your calendar ready, and again, do not accidentally solicit on the phone. Someone who hasn't been solicited face-to-face before, again, will try and push back a little bit. You know what, you can just, why don't we just talk right now? What would you say? Why don't we just talk right now? You cannot be silent like you're being right now.
I'd really like to show you what we're doing.
Right. Yes.
I want to show you.
That's beautiful. What else?
You're important, and I'd like to spend the time with you.
We're so important to the work that we do. I love that. Yep.
I usually have a whole portfolio of things I'm going to show them, so I talk to them about that I want to show you the new layout for the playground, or I want to show you the new senior lunch, model that we're doing. So
Yes.
that it's almost
I
like
have something to show you. Again. Yep. Yep.
I want to get to know you better.
Yes.
In person.
Yes. I mean, if it's a friend of mine, I will sometimes say, like, I'm getting out of the office and we are meeting for lunch. You know what I mean? Like, you're saying, you have to figure out what your relationship is and how informal you can be, but sort of like I used to say, like, my boss said I have to be at 4 meetings a month out of the office, you're 1. We're doing this, kind of thing. But you can't say that to somebody who's like, you have a more formal relationship, But you need to push the envelope on that a little bit so that, maybe not use that language, but having something to show someone and wanting to spend some time with you and thanking them for their prior support is important, right? And is a reason to see someone. What else are you nervous that you will hear trying to make the appointment? What other pushback might you experience?
I have so many other commitments, it's not a priority.
Yep.
Or are you asking me for a gift? Are you going to ask me for a gift?
Are you going to ask me for a gift? That's a good one.
What do you want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
I'm too busy.
Okay, so let's start with, what do you want to talk about?
Opportunity.
Yep,
Exciting things that are going on.
yep. New plans. Yeah. Are you going to ask me for a gift?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say I'm going to offer you
An opportunity.
Yes. Yes, I have some opportunities that I would love to run by you. Yeah. But sometimes I say, but I don't need an answer right away. So there's some things I want you to consider. And that's why I always use the word consider when I'm asking for a gift, right? And then you actually have to let people consider. You're asking them to consider. Yes, I'm going to present you with some opportunities, but you should feel no pressure. You can take them home and think about them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to do, if we have time at the end, we only have 20 minutes left, we're going to talk a little bit more about objections that you may encounter either during appointment making or asking, but I'm giving you the lightning round asking for the gift. Just because I want you to be, again, this is faster than I would normally do this, but I want you to just have a sense of it, and then you'll have the slide, you can go back over it, you have questions, you can call me. So generally, we're talking, I'm gonna go through these quick and then go back. We're talking about 4 phases.
Amy, can I just say one thing so fast? For those in the room that have done, I know there are several of you in the room that have done a lot of face-to-face solicitations, and for whom this part might feel very familiar. I'm going to challenge those of you in the room in that category, present company included, to think about how I'm going to use this to stretch to the next level. If you've asked for 6-figure gifts, think about that $1 million gift. If you've asked for the million, what are you going to do for the capital campaign? There is not a person in this room that this does not apply to, and I just want to say that because I don't want any of it to feel so familiar that like we can bow out like, I got this.
Yes. And by the way, I love that comment, and I want you to, for those of you who feel like, yeah, I do this, I know this, I want you to think about the training that you can be doing with your development committee or your board as well. So when I sit through lots of solicitation trainings, and I always find like that one thing like, oh, I should add that to mine. You know what I mean? Like what is the thing, what are the words that resonate or stick, or something even that you didn't like, right, that you want to bring up. So I think about how you can use this, because a lot of you can do your own training, or do your own training already, right? And new material is always great. So, okay, 4 phases: opening, involvement, discussion, and asking closing. Okay, does every solicitation go through 4 distinct phases? No, of course not. Definitely not. But again, I think especially if you're thinking about how do I talk to my lay leadership or to staff, my CEO, who maybe is not a solicitor, about how this generally works, I think sort of breaking it down into phases is helpful in terms of helping people digest how this typically works. There's lots of variations, but during the opening, you are doing most of the talking, right? And by the way, I love team soliciting. So I generally, sometimes not true, am not going on my own. So I'm always meeting with, let's say, a board member or a staff member prior to the ask to think like, okay, which parts are you doing, which parts am I doing? I script this in advance, right? I want to know what story, if the board member is telling the story, because that's usually the part that they're comfortable with, then what story are they telling, right? I want to be sure that it's something that I think reflects the donor's interests. What are we sharing, right? Which parts am I doing, which parts are you doing? So that's why, again, having a little bit of an outline, not a script, as to how this might go and how it breaks down is helpful. So I might even reverse 1 and 2, which is okay, because we start kibitzing right at the beginning, right? So reestablishing that rapport is really great, but at some point soon, pull it back into, thank you so much again for taking the time to meet with me today to talk about the JCC's capital campaign, or whatever it is that you're meeting about. So again, restate the purpose of your visit, especially, the roles might be obvious, but I always like a board member or volunteer to specifically talk about their role in the campaign. If they've taken on, in addition to the board membership, are they now on your committee? What role are they taking on? And I think reestablishing volunteer support is really important to the conversation, for them to know how many volunteers are already involved, maybe how many people have already committed to the campaign, but specifically the role that if you're soliciting with a lay leader, how they're involved and what role they play in the organization, if that's not obvious. And again, enthusiasm. When people get like really red-faced and nervous and formal, whatever, it's like I get nervous for them, kind of a thing. So you want to keep it light. There was that woman in the hall downstairs who does like the laughing yoga. You know what I'm talking about? If you go to her thing. She was talking about like how much laughing. No, you didn't go there. You didn't get the sticker. Okay. She made Lisa and I do this laughing exercises in front of her table, and she just talked about how like humor and laughing, whatever, not only does it lighten the mood, but it actually gives your body more oxygen, whatever. So I'm definitely, as you can tell by my presentation style, like I like something fairly informal that brings out the personal in the conversation. So if you're soliciting with a board member who maybe is not so comfortable, like again, that enthusiasm, that humor, that like making everybody feel comfortable, that might be your role to just kind of lighten the mood. And again, the enthusiasm for the project, I'm always prepping my board member for what they're gonna say. And if they're not gonna toot their own horn a little bit, I toot it for them, like so-and-so is so, did not tell you, but he's so dedicated to this project and has spent countless hours in the planning phases of this project. We're so lucky to have volunteers like him, kind of thing. Okay, involvement. Here's where I promised you we're gonna get back to your story. We are back to your story. So what I was pushing you to do at the end of your story was sort of link it to, how do you link that story to what you're trying to do? Maybe the specific story you told today doesn't link, but I can link almost anything to anybody, you know, any story to any situation. I bet you can too. So how do we link that story about people to the story of the campaign? Here is where, and again, if you can get your lay leader to share that story, you know, again, there's a difference between the paid professional and the volunteer. And if that volunteer is a great storyteller, have them tell the story. If they're not, then you tell it. Because I think we all have a story. And maybe you both tell your stories, especially if you've got a lot of time. So we want to tell the story of the campaign and the story that links them to people. Here's where you're presenting that case for support. So whether you have a written case, and many of us will have a case for support that's maybe morphed into a brochure, or a case that you can share with the donor, here's where I would sort of push that in front of them. Some of us, anyone have video that they share with donors? Yeah, a couple of you have video, so I might put like a short or even a segment of video in front of them. A lot of the camps are doing that, so if we can't bring them to program, your donor to program, which is the best place to meet, then how do we bring program to this conversation? Again, here's where I would show it. And again, back to your own commitment to the JCC, its mission, either as a staff person or as a board member, as a volunteer. Phase 3 is the discussion, and this is the, you know, Hamilton talk less, smile more time in that conversation, where you really want to do a lot less talking than you've done. Phase 1 and 2 is you and your solicitation partner. 3 is where we try to get them to do more of the talking. So involve them, ask them for reactions, let them ask their questions. You might even get a couple of initial objections during this phase. And that's okay. That means that they're listening. And I do so much careful listening and note-taking during this part, because I feel like almost always learn something I did not know during this part. And sometimes I change my strategy about the ask during this very moment right here. Like, oh, my mother loved that music program that you guys used to have. I'm thinking, like, I didn't know it was a mother or a love of the music program. You know what I mean? So it might be that you have to think on your feet. And this is important. So don't be so nervous that you're not listening during this part, because generally people will tell you the most important stuff here. Oh, yes, we made a gift like that to the university 2 years ago, whatever. Well, that wasn't in my prospect research. You know what I mean? So what is it that you can gain here that you can use when you make the ask? Sometimes I've added a 0 because of something that someone has said during this portion of the conversation. Yes.
Can I just, because I've had some challenges at at this stage sometimes, because when you open it up, if the question is sometimes more general, what do you think? They might think that that's when they are supposed to sort of talk about whether their commitment and what they're going to do before you have had the chance to actually ask for a specific dollar amount.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the questions should be a little bit more targeted to what you want to get about the program, and not necessarily like, so what do you think?
Right.
But
that may be too broad.
So what do you think of our approach to, to helping seniors, or how does this sit with you in terms of our, strategy or something like that?
Yeah.
So.
And I have found that I hardly even have to ask too many questions, right? That I just sort of like draw back and let them do more of the talking, and I'm doing less of the direction. But you're right. I think that if you're finding that you really need to guide a little bit here, your questions should be targeted. And if you need help with those, like, leading questions, I probably have a list somewhere on my computer that I can share with you, but that's a great point. Don't go too broad. Because you do need to bring it back, right, at some point. Was there another question about this phase? Before I move on. Okay, you do need to draw it back to the ask. So that portion, by the way, I mean, this could be like 75% of the meeting, and that would be okay. this discussion, because I told you, this is like that critical information gathering phase for me. It's like, what did they think of what I just said? This is huge.
Let me ask you a quick question,
Yeah.
since you sort of led into that. How much time do you allow? Do you say, how much time do you have for me today? Or
Yeah.
should you, in your mind, think, I gotta wrap this up in 30 minutes? Or
Yeah,
what?
so sometimes when I'm having trouble getting an appointment, I ultimately will say, let me come to your office, right? Because that is the easiest appointment I have found to get. And sometimes I'll say, and I'll only take up 20 minutes of your time, because I know I'm having trouble getting in the door. Then I have to have planned to have gotten through this part in less than 20 minutes. And at the 20-minute mark, I always say, you know what, I want to respect your time and the fact that I told you I was only going to take 20 minutes, you have a few more minutes. They almost always say yes. Because you've now engaged them, it's their turn to talk.
And it's not scary.
It's not scary, right? And I don't really, if they say no, I don't, I would go right to here. I would get, because maybe I have to get my ask in and I'm ready. But if they are ready, you have to, if you told them it was going to be an hour, then it has to be an hour and you have to say, do I have permission to keep going?
An hour seems like a really long time.
An hour is a long time if you're not at the person's house. I feel like when I'm soliciting, when I said, can I come over, can a board member and I come over in the evening once your kids are in bed or whatever it is, and then it tends to be an hour because you're drinking something and having a piece of cake or whatever, and then there's more time to schmooze. If you are at someone's office, then an hour is too long.
Yeah.
You know, if you can take them to lunch during the workday, which I like to do also, then like you have to be in and out in an hour. People have like an hour total for lunch generally that they're willing to give. So I'm always sort of adapting it. I say at the beginning, like, what time do you have to be back? Then I'm keeping an eye on my watch. Right, so I know that I have to move through this, and like, maybe I'd love for this to go on for another, 15 minutes, but it can't, because I gotta close. I gotta move to the close. And again, sometimes during this phase, I'll say, that is a great question, and I'm gonna get back to you with the answer. Because either I don't know, or I don't have time to go into a lot of that right this second, because I gotta get to this, because your lunch hour is about to be up. Yeah.
But wouldn't it then make sense to, I mean, what's the balance between doing that and truly engaging with the person's question and showing that you are truly committed to engaging with them and not just like the bottom line?
Well, don't forget,
and
this
the
is not
hopes.
my cultivation visit. So I think that's a great question, by the way. If the question I feel like must be answered before the ask is made, in other words, like, I'm about to ask for a scholarship gift, okay, for a general operating gift, in my case for support with scholarship, and I find during this discussion that this person has a huge issue with the fact that we're serving more non-Jewish kids than Jewish. Okay, I might abort the ask because I don't know exactly what the stat is, or I don't know how to answer that question, or I feel like we're not ready for this ask. I'm not going to achieve the ideal or the optimal gift.
Exactly.
Then stop. It's always better to stop. So I think that's a great point.
What and say what?
I think we need to talk about this more. Like, I wouldn't let them know I was going to ask you, but now I'm not. Right? But it's sort of like I would not go to the ask, and I would either A, keep talking about this and let discussion phase 3 be the end of the conversation, and we have to keep going.
Like saying, I would love to continue this conversation when we put some more time on the calendar.
Yes, 100%.
By the way, even if you said on the call when you made the appointment, yes, I'm going to be asking, I want to give you the opportunity, whatever you said, it's okay in that lunch or meeting to say, you know what, I was prepared to talk about a gift today. I see that there's more for us to talk about before we get there.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yep.
Because then the next appointment needs to be a face-to-face too, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean,
Or do you
you've
have a
already
quick
said,
question they
this
need
guy's
answered?
busy.
I mean, right, if someone says to you, and this is like a real thing, it happened to me, I will make a gift if there's a CEO change. I would be happy to make a major gift to the organization, but I'm not happy with your leadership of the organization. That's not like, can I skip to the ask now? There's no way, like, time out. No, okay. Then I'm like, I gotta bring some board members into this conversation. I have to figure out how I'm gonna tell my CEO what happened. I mean, there's sort of like a, right? I mean, that, yeah.
But typically, I mean, because we actually have that problem, but typically you have an idea that happens.
Yes.
Like you go in prepared, like
Yes.
you know who your exec is pissed off, right? Or you know what program you've done that they don't want to keep giving to you.
Yes.
Or who you hired you took away.
Yes, I'll give you a right. That I would, if they
Like you're
hated my
prepared.
CEO, I probably would have known before.
Right.
That in most cases, but I'll give you another example. I worked in a day school, did a solicitation with a $10,000 annual donor, asked him for his annual contribution. His kid lost the election for the president of the student council thing the day before, and he thought it was unfair. And you know who he lost it to? The head of school's son. So he was very upset. So I did say exactly that, Jen. I said, I was going to ask you for your gift today, but I'm not going to. Because I would actually like to have someone attend to the questions that you've asked me. I have no idea what happened with the election, by the way, right? So I would like to have someone who knows what happened. And I knew he didn't want to talk to the head of school, but I'd love to have the assistant principal call you and tell you how this works. There's no way I was asking for that gift. And I didn't want to ask that gift for another month. Like, get over that thing and then let me come talk to you.
Call me when you're over it.
Right, just let me know. Send me a text.
What did you do yesterday, just so you know? Like, what happened yesterday?
Right, exactly. Right, by one day I missed it. Okay, the close, so again, summarize. I want to summarize the discussion, and I always sort of bring in something that I learned about what they said. Right, so bring back in something that you gained during that discussion. You know, yes, you want to mention all the aspects of the new program or project that you just summarized, but I also sometimes say, and what I heard you say today was, this program is very important to you, right? So again, regurgitate to them what you heard them say to remind them that they said something was important or something was meaningful. And that's why I'd like to ask for a gift today. And again, I always use the word consider. I'd like you to consider a gift with a specific amount. If someone tells you it's not right to ask for a specific amount, they're wrong. All of the research suggests, right? It's just like I always say, just because you've been doing something wrong for a long time doesn't make it right. It is wrong. It is not best practice to do that, and I've loved having that conversation with anyone who disagrees with me. But there's a lot of research that supports that suggested ask really guides a donor's thinking about their gift. So that's why I'd like you to consider a gift today of X amount toward our project or annual campaign. Then the most important thing that is not on this slide is that you are not the next person to talk. No matter what. There are no exceptions to the ask amount, yes, always, and you can't be the next person to talk. Always. Why? What's that?
You want to let them answer.
Yeah, but why else? What if they're silent? Yeah.
You're also going to start backpedaling. And
Yes. You will negotiate with yourself before. I've seen it happen many times. Like, I know that sounds like a lot of money. He didn't say it was a lot of money. Who are you talking to?
It's your defense mechanism.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask.
Yeah, right. Don't assume you've upset them. You just ask them to consider, let them think. You just told them to think about it, and now you're not letting them think. And guess what? The thing out of your mouth will not be helpful. Again, you're negotiating with yourself. So just wait. If you have to wait a while, just wait. Do not talk. Because you don't know what the face means. You think they have an uncomfortable face. You have no idea what it means. I'm always wrong about what I think. I think this person's going to say yes. It's a no. I think this person's going to say they can do it. I mean, whatever it is, you have to wait. You can't be the next one to speak because you don't know where the conversation is going. Let them digest it, and then let them ask questions. Right? And we have like 1 minute to do maybe one objection, and that's it. But the bottom line is we have to thank the prospect or donor. So even if they have not made a gift, you have to get a commitment for follow-up. So if someone says, I really need to think about that, great. I always say, would it be okay to call you next Tuesday? Would that be enough time? I don't want them to ever be in the position of being in touch with me next. Let me call you next week. Why? Because then what if they don't? Well, your agreement was that they're going to get in touch with you, and yet you probably won't hear from them. So I never want it to be on them. I always say, if they say I'll get in touch with you next week, I still say, would it be okay if I called you on Monday to just check in with you and see how you're feeling and if you had any questions. Generally, they'll say yes, or next Friday, or would that be enough time for you to think about it or talk to your spouse or partner about it? I want to be in control of the follow-up, because I won't mess it up, and I won't forget. And then you really have to do it that day. And then no matter what, and even if you're disappointed, and lots of times we're disappointed, you have to act like you're not disappointed. And you have to thank them for their time, for their consideration, or their gift. I think we have to end, am I right? Okay. I want you to, so here's your homework assignment, because we didn't get to do objections, and some of you came up with some of these, so I give generously to other organizations, maybe non-Jewish, by the way, organizations. My dollar's already committed. I already know about all the JCC, you don't have to tell me about it. I don't like X about what you're doing. This is a very popular one, count me out. And I already write a big check. So these are some of the things that we already talked about. I would like you, we talked about this, I would like you to use those or customize those with your own committee or with your own board. If you even just go through the objections with them to talk about how might you respond to this, anybody who's going to be asking, whether it's on the phone or in person, should practice together the answers. Like, what is it that, how do you want them to answer those questions? You should be on the same page about that. If you have questions, comments, you have challenges you want to talk about, please feel free to be in touch. I'm sorry we didn't have time to go through the objections, but I'm happy to work them out with you on the phone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for everybody.